Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 76 of the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. It is Sunday, a little bit after 7 p.m. Eastern time. Got some interesting basketball today. And, we're kind of winding down. College basketball is getting ready for the tournament. And, but this is, again, one of the, I think this is more fun when we just kind of talk about topics and we don't really have necessarily a game to break down necessarily. But what I wanted to open with was talk about this Brandon Miller situation at the University of Alabama. I just think
I think just lay it out just because I'm still a little unclear as to what exactly happened.
Okay, so what we know, and this is a big point of contention, we actually don't know everything.
Okay.
More stuff continues to come out. But basically, the gist of it is this, that Brandon Miller, one of the players on the University of Alabama basketball team, basically his friend and teammate texted him to wanted his gun. So it was his teammate's gun. That's what they're saying anyway. Wanted him to bring his gun to a scene where there was something going on. And so this is like 2:00 in the morning. So he brings the gun to the guy. I think it's Darius Miles is the name of the player. And then he shoots somebody. There's a shooting and somebody got killed. Woman got killed. And so basically this has kind of gone. So at first we didn't know about it. This happened on January 15th, I think. So first we didn't know exactly what happened. And then it came out like at some point in February that Brandon Miller had brought the gun to the scene where a murder occurred. And so, then there's been this, kind of a rush to judgment by everybody. The police have already, they've arrested Darius Miles and he's being charged with murder. And they arrested one of the other players, I think. But the district attorney came out and said, we don't have anything to charge Brandon Miller with. I don't know exactly how that works legally, but that's the case. They're not charging him with the crime, and they still haven't charged him with the crime. So Alabama's way of dealing with this was just to kind of like, well, he's not being charged with the crime, so we're going to let him play. And then the coach came out in a press conference, and they asked him about it, and he basically said, look, kids go out. What are you going to do? He was in the wrong place. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, we talked, basically me and the president of the university and the athletic director, we had a conversation about it and we decided that he should still be able to play. So then one of the games, I think it was last week, they come out, they do the player introductions, So Brandon Miller comes out and one of his teammates does like a pat down.
I saw
like
that.
Like what would be like a police pat down. Okay. So that made it even worse. And then he plays in the game. He scores 41 points. Alabama wins. And so the point we're at now is basically at this point, the university is still continuing to let him play. He's not being charged with a crime. And basically, they're saying, they're using the innocent until proven guilty defense. And, so my opinion on this is this looks terrible for college sports. I'm really appalled and horrified that we are allowing this to go on. And just for juxtaposition, okay, so in comparison, Ja Morant, right, has been suspended. Well, they're just saying he's not going to play in the next two games.
Yeah.
So that to me means, all right, we're gonna keep him out at least 2 games, and then we're going to make a decision further. So Ja Morant is on. He's on Instagram Live. He's out at a nightclub. He's singing, dancing, having a good time with the shirt off, whatever. And then he, picks up a gun, kind of holds it up like he's not, not pointing it at anybody, not looking dangerous with it, just holds it up for the video. Okay.
Yeah.
He was.
It's a bad look, but I mean,
right. Immediately. No, you're right. And listen, Ja Morant didn't do anything wrong with the gun. Nobody got hurt. Nobody broke the law. There was nobody arrested. The Memphis Grizzlies said he's not playing in at least the next 2 games. Ja Morant comes out with a statement taking full responsibility for it, saying he needs to get help and, figure out how to deal with this better. Okay? Within 48 hours of it happening.
Right.
Okay? And the University of Alabama continues to let Brandon Miller play where, at best, the best case scenario is Brandon Miller made a bad decision. He exercised some really bad judgment, and somebody got hurt. Somebody got killed because of it.
Yeah.
Okay? Players get suspended for missing class, for not practicing like they're supposed to, for all kinds of other stuff. They use the generic violation of team rules. All of this other stuff players get suspended for. And for this, the university decided no discipline needed to be taken. And by the way, I'm not crucifying Brandon Miller here. I'm not saying that he needs to get in a lot of trouble or anything like that. I'm just saying the university, from a public relations standpoint, like, what are you doing? It doesn't hurt anyone to just sit him down, to just say, look, you're not playing until we figure this out.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do. It's not really complicated, but they're not going to do that because he's really good and they have a chance to win the championship. So they're not going to do it. And honestly, my opinion is it's college basketball. If this was the NFL, this would be getting a whole lot more of attention and this would be a lot worse. But because it's college basketball, and no offense to college basketball, people just don't care about it the same way that they do with these other sports. Like, if this is a professional league, there's no way this guy's playing.
Yeah.
And there's no way he should be playing. And the school, it's an example of how nobody's running college football at all. There's no oversight.
College basketball.
This college sports in general.
Right.
If nobody, example I used the other day was that, this is how things like what happened at Penn State with Joe Paterno and Jerry Sandusky, this is how these things happen. The president of the university never at any point steps in and goes, guys, we're going to deal with this, and nobody's playing until we figure this out.
Right.
And it's appalling to me. I can't describe. And the worst part about it, I hate to be selfish, but the worst part about it for me is that I hate agreeing with Clay Travis on anything.
Yeah.
I think he's out of his mind for the most part, but him and I are 100% in lockstep on this. This is disgusting, and the Alabama fans should be ashamed of themselves, for trying to support this. And I've been on YouTube looking at videos of all kinds of people trying to act like it's not that big a deal. And I don't even know what to say. So I'll let you have the floor because I can't.
I'm trying to think of anything I can add to what you're saying. I mean, I guess there's not as much attention on it, and I guess they're just sort of getting away with it. I mean, I guess there is some attention with it. So people are talking about it to an extent, but that's pretty crazy. I mean, on some level I understand allowing each institution to decide how to discipline their players. Same thing with like disciplining students if they do something wrong in college. But, the danger with that is that, you're giving wide latitude to different schools to handle things how they want to handle them. And, their basketball team's having a really good season, and that guy's a really good player. So they don't, they're just kind of getting away with it. And for the people that are defending it, it's like, okay, someone asks you, hey, bring this gun to me. Like, was it the guy who ended up using the gun, was it his or was it this other player's?
We don't really know. I mean, Brandon Miller's lawyer is saying that it's, that he never brought him the gun anyway. So, I mean, we don't really. That's the thing. That's the thing to me that tops it all off for me is we don't have all the details. So why would you let him play when we don't even have all the details? Like, we don't know everything. The cops aren't telling us everything. Well, then they can use that same argument. They can say, "Well, we need to find out more information before we make a decision." But I mean, I don't think anything's going to happen to this kid. But that's probably. If they're making that argument, that's probably why. They could just say, well, we don't have all the information. Well, it's just, of course his lawyer's saying he didn't bring the gun. Maybe they don't really have proof that he did that. Maybe they can't really establish that. So, well, how did it then come? Are there text messages or something like saying? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he sent him a text message, something about, bring my gun because somebody's fronting or something like that. So it's not. And by the way, like we could debate the intent. Like that's fun. By the way, I'm not going to get into a discussion about who intended to do what. Maybe he had good intentions. That's fine. Like I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is a university not protecting themselves by saying, and the other thing is like it's going to get worse. Now we're going into the NCAA tournament where there actually will be a lot of attention on college basketball, right? The NCAA tournament is their golden goose. Like this is how they make a lot of their money is from this tournament. So you're going to do this on the biggest stage. You're going to have all this negative attention and fans are chanting, lock him up. Like it's really bad, and it's just gross. I can't believe that this is where college sports is. And, it doesn't seem to be,
I can believe it. I mean, it's just, the way when you have a screwed up system like this, stuff happens. This is a really complicated thing.
Yeah, I think my take is that Alabama's obviously tone deaf. I mean, Nick Saban suspends his players for doing a lot less than this. So I don't understand how the Alabama basketball program is able to get away with this nonsense. And, Brandon Miller's going to get drafted really high. It's not like what blows my mind is that it's not like I know Alabama wants to win. I get it, but they're not real necessarily. Brandon Miller's not going to necessarily lose anything if he doesn't play for the rest of the season. It's really not. It's not that big a deal to sit the guy down and just say we're going to keep you out until we figure this out. And so I don't see another side to this. Anybody who's defending this guy saying he didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying that maybe he's not a bad person. Maybe his intentions were good. Fine. Okay. Maybe all of that's true. Still exercised really bad judgment.
Yeah. I think, it's God, I don't know. I mean, he has a lawyer, so but I wouldn't think that there will be any sort of like legal action you could take because you were because you were suspended from the basketball team. But, I mean, if he hasn't been charged with a crime yet, he has a lawyer. So that's kind of, I mean, you can seek legal counsel, but the fact that he has a lawyer, that's a little suspicious maybe. I don't know. It's definitely a bad look. I mean, maybe you at the very least you suspend him a couple games just because, he was involved in this situation and it makes the university look bad.
Right. I mean, what's the harm in sitting him?
Darius, the other guy, the other player, Darius Miles or whatever his name is.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hurt to sit him down for 10 days. What's the harm in, but now they've kind of missed that window. So if they do anything now, it looks like they're just reacting to, public pressure, which I would hope that they would react to something at this point. It's just, it's amazing. It's appalling at how stuff like this could happen. But anyway, so we don't want to talk about that forever. But I just I can't. It's just look at the difference. Look at the NBA. Like Ja Morant. Like again, not didn't break any laws. Nobody got hurt. And they reacted instantly. Like okay, no, sorry, you can't play because and Alabama continues to let this guy play. It blows my mind. And so it's just it's sad that it's really sad that this is where we are. This is where we are with it, and that the University of Alabama has not done the right thing. So anyway, so the other thing, what you brought to my attention, wanted to talk about was the Brett Favre scandal. Brett Favre apparently was involved in embezzling some money from the state of Mississippi, and now
along with the governor, former governor.
Correct.
Yeah. So they were going to try to build they've taken money to build a volleyball stadium at his volleyball stadium. And there's some hang on. I should say allegedly. Although there are some very incriminating text messages. So allegedly, this is what happened. And apparently Pat McAfee, when he talked about it originally before he got sued, he did say allegedly. He's saying, oh, there's some, and he's referring to some pretty damning evidence. Again, it's still evidence. You're innocent until proven guilty. They'll, whatever. But so then he decided to sue Pat McAfee. I think he sued Shannon Sharp as well, because they were talking about it. And, and then Favre was basically saying I guess Favre or Favre's lawyer were saying they're going to bankrupt Pat McAfee, which I find hilarious given all the money that McAfee has from, he's got sponsorships with DraftKings or something. But it was funny. I was watching a clip of his show on Friday, where he's talking about when he got served, served the lawsuit. He said, a woman knocks on his door, on Sunday morning, and she says, I am so sorry. I am a fan of the show. I just worked for a company that was hired. These are for you. Which I thought was pretty funny. But that's how he got served. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm a fan of the show, but this is my job. So, it's just kind of funny to me. Like, I don't think there's a lot of talk about this. I mean, there are some articles about it, but it's just like, dude, I mean, if we're like, I'm not going to make a statement one way or another about cancel culture, but if you want to cancel somebody, I mean, stealing millions of dollars from welfare for people who need it is, that's kind of like, okay, we're going to kind of shame you for a while and you're out of, we're not going to, think of you the same way ever again. Like, that's kind of paragraph 1 of your bio when you steal from, allegedly, but there's very significant evidence, but allegedly steal from,
Brett Favre's had a lot of problems in his life. This is not a guy who has been on the straight and narrow for his entire career. Brett Favre has had issues pretty much from the beginning. So, it's amazing that a guy that, at the end of his career that I think most people pretty much liked, I think he's pretty well liked overall.
Yeah.
Has done this and basically completely torpedoed it, and now is lashing out with frivolous lawsuits against people who, are
well. And by the way, this lawsuit is completely ridiculous because Brett Favre is a public figure. The bar that you have to cross to prove defamation, when you're a public figure is extremely high, as it should be, because you're a public figure, and, McAfee, and I'm not sure about Shannon Sharp, but if they can just point to, I said allegedly when I was talking about this, that's kind of case closed, like they're fine, and also they can say, well, if you're saying that I'm saying you did this, then I can just say I'm referring to this evidence that we've seen reported, which there has been evidence that has been reported. And it's, like I said, it's very, text messages and things that are very damning. So it's the idea that he's going to cross this bar is just ridiculous. Now, my only question would be, is he going to be able to drag this out long enough where McAfee is going to have huge legal bills because of this? Because that's ridiculous that you can file a frivolous lawsuit and then just, get a bunch of money, somebody else to have to pay out a bunch of money, even though this lawsuit's probably not going to, amount to anything. That seems a little,
it reeks of, just anger and revenge and desperation, that, Brett Favre would come after people and try to sue them, because they're commenting on things that, there's a whole bunch of stories out about certain things he may or may not have done. And, it's pretty well, I think it's pretty well substantiated that, he was definitely dipping his toe in the wrong waters.
That's the thing, though. A lot of these powerful people, who whether they're powerful through, they run a business, or they're powerful because of, they're a professional athlete for a long time and they have, people know who they are and whatever. it seems like, a lot of times they just feel like, well, I can do whatever the hell I want, and I don't want people calling me out on it. And, they get really upset when people call them out on it, and it's like, well, no, if you're a public figure, people are going to talk about you sometimes, and with this, there's some pretty strong evidence that's against you. So, it's just, again, it's, I'm not against defamation lawsuits. I mean, obviously, I think you need that sometimes because you can't just have people going on there and just saying untrue stuff and just being completely ridiculous about it. But, this is like, feels like the definition of a frivolous lawsuit. So, yeah, I do think it's going to be kind of interesting that Pat McAfee's at this, because if you watch Pat McAfee's show, like, he has a way about him that's just going to be, this is going to be entertaining. First of all, he's not sitting down. He's standing up. He never wears a shirt on a show. He never wears a shirt with sleeves on it. So he's just got and he's got that very thick, I don't know if that's a Philadelphia or like Pittsburgh or like Baltimore kind of accent to his voice, and just, and then him and the guys on there just kind of goofing around. And I love there's one video where he films it and he's like drinking a beer and he's like, yeah, bring it on, like. So I just think this is going to be kind of interesting to watch. It's kind of like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, which they were making fun of that on Saturday Night Live, So yeah, it's just it's one of those things. Like, yeah, it feels like there should be more attention on this, because it's like, this is pretty damning to Brett Favre's reputation. I mean, it's pretty just, especially you add up other things that may or may not have happened, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we get the attention of Pat McAfee's show, so we probably don't have to worry about being sued.
Yeah, I'm just, who knows?
But, I think, again, we were talking about a sad story with Brandon Miller. This is a sad thing for Brett Favre. Like, it's kind of like, man, like people had put you in a good place. Like, I think in most people's minds, you were in a pretty good place. And,
yeah.
Now this stuff
of
happens.
Like, a little bit of it on a smaller scale. Like, when you got a lot of money, if you want to build something, fine, spend your own damn money and build it. Don't take from the taxpayers or don't take from welfare. It's kind of like when, billionaires are like, oh, I don't want to put money toward a stadium. I need the public to finance that. Oh, really? Okay, you don't have enough money to do this? Like, it's just it's kind of a ridiculous argument.
Yeah, you don't have to be, just because you're famous or you have a lot of money doesn't mean you're not a trashy person. It doesn't discriminate in that way. Did you have something you wanted to talk about first, or did you want me to go with my next?
What was the next thing? I know we got some like that.
So I was just thinking about this. I also wanted to bring this up. So there was a story that came out a few weeks ago about college football rule changes to supposedly to make the game faster. So they were going to, I think it was, not to keep the clock moving, even if you go, like they do in the NFL, even if you go out of bounds before there's 5 minutes to go in the quarter, to keep the clock moving. If there's a play at the end of a quarter, there's a defensive penalty. They don't do an untimed down. They just move to the next quarter. The one rule change that they're talking about that I'm not sure is going to fly is they were basically saying they were going to, keep the clock moving even after incomplete passes, which, seemed a little bit.
I don't agree with that.
It seemed a little extreme, but it was like that was the fourth thing they proposed. There were like four different changes, and that one was the fourth one. And so, at first I was kind of reading it like, okay, like, thank God, because you and I have been complaining college football games are way too long for years now, and this needs to be fixed. But what's actually happening is they're using the guise of player safety to say, all right, well, we want to lessen the amount of plays in a game, right? We want to have less plays, to keep them safer. But what they're really doing is, and this took me a little while to figure out. I had to go to several different sources to figure this out. Basically, what they're going to do is they want less plays so they can get more commercials in. So the game is going to take the same amount of time. There's just going to be less plays. So
Jesus.
they're actually trying to screw. It's actually kind of it's a unique. It's not unique, but it's a. They're trying to screw us basically, and treating us like we're stupid. Basically, like no. And by the way, those the four rule changes, right? That fourth one about the clock stopping after incomplete passes. They just threw that in just so we would agree with the first three, because the fourth one is so bad that people aren't going to like that. But basically, what happened is the TV network said, "Hey, can we cram some more ads in there?" And that's basically what's going on, and they're using it as, oh, hey, we'll have less plays. But the problem with that is, yeah, you can try that, but these offenses that go fast, they're just going to go faster.
Yeah,
that's all that's going to happen. That's what the adjustment's going to be. These offenses are just going to go faster. And listen, now my argument the whole time is, I don't care as long as the game's faster. If the game takes less time, it doesn't make any difference to me.
Either way, I'm fine. The games are 4-hour college football games are just ridiculous.
Right. But that's not really what they're proposing.
Right.
That's not really what's going to happen. What's going to happen is, and what I disagree with is this, in the article it says the average college football game is 3 hours and 21 minutes. Right. That's the average college football game. When you watch the big game, the major TV network game, at 3:30 or the 7:30 game or whatever game it is, those take much longer.
Yep.
So I'd like to know what the average is for those games, because I guarantee you it ain't 3 hours and 21 minutes. These games are not done in 3.5 hours.
No, that's
not happening.
Yeah, those. I mean, it's so, especially those big games. It is so noticeable. I mean, you literally you're watching a game, you look up, you're like, we're not done with the first quarter yet. Like, what are you guys doing? I mean, it's just I'm not trying. People may think, oh, well, you're just whining. No, I'm not whining. This is ridiculous. I mean, it's not how long these games take. I mean, the NFL. I'll look up and I'm like, oh my God, we're already in the second quarter. Okay, And it's obviously the NFL is different than college football, but it's I mean, it's still a similar thing. I can understand some of the replays taking a little bit longer, but it's more than that, because it's not running enough.
By comparison, okay, in college football, the halftime is 20 minutes. The NFL, it's 12 minutes, okay? The Super Bowl, the biggest game of the year, the most TV, they're spending all this money on the TV ads. The game had a 30-minute halftime show. The game was 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
At a certain point, someone needs to look out for the product, and that's really the biggest problem with college sports is nobody's looking out for the product. It's just, how do we squeeze more money out of this? And so, the thing is, they have everybody. People aren't going anywhere. People who are watching college football, they're in. You can make the games. If you make the games long and people are enjoying it, nobody cares.
Yeah. So, look at we'll talk about baseball in a little bit, but guys, look at what's happened with baseball. Part of the reason people just don't want to watch it anymore is because, first of all, you don't know how long it's going to take. And some of these games just take way too long and there's not enough action. Okay? I mean, the replays they have in college football, I mean, good God. It just, you're watching the game, you're enjoying it, and then you're just are we done yet? Come on, let's go. Figure it out. Come on. Obviously that's a big issue with officiating and all that stuff.
Right. And they're reviewing every targeting call and all of that.
Yeah, but it's guys, you can't just let this go on. You have to be proactive with this stuff, because then it just builds and builds and builds, and then you start losing people. Okay, it's the same thing with a website that doesn't work or an app that doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work for one person, they stop using it, they tell other people, then the other people stop using it. Eventually, that word spreads, and people are like, "This is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore." That's why. I mean, that's why soccer is getting more popular. Because
there was a No, it was a really interesting conversation on Colin Cowherd's podcast. He was talking to Ian O'Connor, and Ian O'Connor's a sports writer, and basically he was saying that, I think he lives in New York or on the East Coast, and he's basically saying his son and their friends would get together on Saturday mornings to watch the English Premier League. They would they'd get together. The games are 2 hours or less than 2 hours, and it's over. It's done. You don't have to worry about it. You know how long you're going to be there. It's constant action, right? You don't have to, there's not commercial breaks constantly. You don't have to constantly wait for the game. And by the way, soccer is more popular than baseball. Like when 20 million people are watching the United States men's team play in the World Cup, baseball's got a problem because they don't get that for World Series games.
Yeah.
So it's a serious issue. But I just think I want to get that out there because it's like, oh, cool. College football wants to like make some changes that might be good. Okay. It sounds better than it is. I don't think this is actually going to make the games go faster. Hopefully it will. I would like I think Danny Cannell brought this up on something I was watching the other day. I really think the college football should try to have a little more symmetry with the NFL. I'm not saying every rule, but I think they should try to make the game as a good TV product.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like you talk about they're trying to squeeze every dollar they can out of it. It reminds me of, and maybe this isn't the best analogy, but in the movie Goodfellas, when remember Paulie like keeps screwing around in that restaurant, and so then the owner's like, "Hey, why don't you take over the restaurant?" And he's like, "Well, okay, fine." So was it? I'm sorry, no, Tommy's messing around with the restaurant. Then they're like, the owner of the restaurant goes to Paulie and says, "Hey, why don't you take over the restaurant?" And then he takes it over, and then he's just selling everything and squeezing every dollar out of it. And then they're like, "Oh, well, we're done." And then they just burn the place down, because they've squeezed everything out of it. And they're, it's like you have to watch out for the product. You can't just try to squeeze everything out of it, because then, eventually you're going to end up losing fans. You're going to end up pissing people off. I'm still going to be watching, but it's fucking annoying. I mean, I'll put it this way. Because most of the games are on Saturday night, that saves them, okay? Because if this was happening on a Monday night or a Sunday night, I'd be like, some of these games I'd be like, I'll try to watch it in the morning. Like, I'm not going to stay up for this shit, But because they're on Saturday, that saves them.
Okay, so yeah, moving on. This is a seamless transition here. So right into the next topic that also affecting quality of the game. We'll talk about the NBA and load management. So you were texting me the other day, and basically you were saying, look, I don't think fans care about load management, or I don't want to paraphrase what you said, but
yeah, no, it was. I mean,
ahead.
Basically, like how I just, and you've asked this question before. I'm like, how big of a deal is this now? Because you'll get segments on like ESPN and FS1, and you hear stuff on the radio and whatever, and yeah, there are some players who are sitting out games where they could theoretically play, But I need some real stats on this, because they'll be like, oh, well, these guys miss games. And I'm like, well, Anthony Davis was hurt. Steph Curry's been hurt. LeBron's been hurt. Some other players are talking about, like, they had some injuries. Like, so, now are some of the players are missing some games where, like, yeah, they could be out there. But are there going to be an avalanche of fans who don't watch? Because one of the things with the NBA that I think people are maybe starting to come around to is like, look, if you're into the NBA, you're into the NBA. If you're not, you're really not. I mean, like, there's a huge dichotomy between like college basketball fans and NBA fans, and a lot of times you don't like. Sometimes you have people who watch college and the NBA, but I think more often you have. I just watch college. I hate the NBA for bullshit reasons, but whatever. And then you have people who just watch the NBA and they don't watch college, So I just kind of think the NBA, that they have their fans, and I still think the product is really good. So I don't think people are going to be turning away in droves from this. Now, it sucks if, a family pays money to go see, like what happened with the Miami Heat. This kid went to go see Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy Butler wasn't playing. And then later on, Jimmy Butler like signed some autographs and met with the kid and took some pictures or whatever. But it would have been nice if the kid could have seen Jimmy Butler play, So I'm not saying it's not necessarily a bad look, like Colin Cowherd will talk about that. It is a bad look, but I just, first of all, I don't think they're going to stop it. I really don't think, like, if you listen to, like, CJ McCollum was talking about this, and, like, the way things are, people are like, well, if we can play a little less, then maybe we'll stay healthier, And I don't know what the right answer to that is. Should you play more? I mean, why are there more injuries now when guys are playing less, and there were less injuries in the 90s when they were playing more? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't think you can necessarily, have a 1-to-1 correlation between, well, if they play more, then they won't get hurt as much. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think that I don't think it's as many players doing this. This is affecting as many players as the media is portraying that it is.
Right.
But I do think it is a problem, not in the short term, right? I don't think it's a problem necessarily at this minute, but like we were talking about things that affect the product long term, right? When baseball was putting on their playoff games at 8 p.m. Eastern time, right? And there's an entire generation of kids who didn't watch playoff baseball very much because the games weren't on early enough when they could actually watch it.
Yeah.
So, so I don't think the load management thing, it's not oh no, the NBA's in trouble because of this, right? Their next TV deal is going to be huge because live sports is just going to sell. That's just the way it is. There's nothing else you can put on TV live. Everybody's starving for it. They all want it. So therefore the price is going to go up. But by that same token, right, if there's an entire generation of kids growing up not used to seeing the best players play in the regular season, then you're going at a certain point, there is diminishing returns, just like in college football, just like in baseball. So I do believe it is something that they're going to have to work on. But what I think is happening is I see a lot of this blame being thrown at the players, and I don't necessarily think it's all the players' fault. I think that a lot of guys, like I was listening to, Paul George was on JJ Redick's podcast the other day talking about this. Basically that the medical staff will come to you and say, because they're monitoring everything you do now, like he was saying something like he's got a chip. I don't know if it's in his shoes or in his uniform or whatever it is. So they're monitoring how far you're running, how fast you're going. They're monitoring what your level of activity is. They're monitoring everything you do. So now they're coming to you after and saying, hey, man, you've been doing a lot. We need to sit you down for whatever. So I don't think this is as many because, first of all, if you're not a star player, you have to play no matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you might lose your job. So those guys aren't affected by this at all, right? If you're one of the best players and you're on, you've got a big contract and you're pretty stable in the league, right? This is mostly the teams doing this. When it was the San Antonio Spurs 20 years ago started to do this, the team was deciding it. It wasn't the players deciding this. Right. I think with rare exception, I don't think the players, I get the impression anyway, now hearing from several players, I watched that C.J. McCollum interview, listening to a bunch of them, and J.J. Redick's talking about this, I don't think the players are deciding we don't want to play. I think the teams are doing what they think is best for them because it makes sense, right? The teams have all the money invested in LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard and all of these guys. And I think this is what the teams are deciding to do. Now, could a player probably override that? I guess. Like, I'm sure they probably could. So the NBA's got some decisions to make.
There are players who play like most of the games. So,
right. So I think that Adam Silver, but what I will say is Adam Silver talking about during the All-Star weekend, talking about this and acting like it's not that big of a deal. That's a little disturbing. This is an issue, and they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do about this. I don't know. And by the way, I don't know what the answer is because making the season shorter is not necessarily the answer. If you play 72 games,
they're not going to make the season shorter. So
guys are still going to miss games.
Yeah.
If you take out all the back-to-backs, I guarantee you they're still going to, So I don't know what the answer is, but it is an issue that needs to be figured out. But I totally understand what the teams are doing where they're like, look, most of our revenue comes from the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
Like we need to make sure we have these guys ready to go when we get there, and resting this guy a game now, like is probably going to be more beneficial to us down the line. Now, there's people who disagree with the science and say it's nonsense, blah, 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 blah. Okay. You can disagree with the science if you want, but the teams have decided, like if you don't believe in analytics, it's too late for you. The teams are making decisions based on this stuff. It's not going away. The teams aren't going to change their mind and change their philosophy now. It's here. So you got to figure out how to adapt and what the best thing is for everybody. And the problem, like I said, for the NBA is it really doesn't matter because the next TV deal is going to be huge.
Yeah,
there's going to be people competing for it. You're still going to get that money, and that's where most of the money and most of the revenue comes from TV.
Well, and the other issue is, and Nick Wright's pointed this out, and I've thought this for a while, we put so much, the media puts so much emphasis on the playoffs and championships and what you do in the playoffs, and we routinely just discredit stuff that happens in the regular season. I mean, look at the debate around should Nikola Jokic win another MVP. And that's been going on for a while, and let's just be honest, it's kind of ridiculous. You're not, and you've talked about this before, you're not guaranteed to win a championship. Okay? Right. So many different things go into it. I think it was it CJ McCollum talking about this? He was like, yeah, people talk about, winning a championship as if it's not the hardest thing that you're trying to do, Right. And so and then when the Warriors went 73-9, everyone's like, oh, well, they didn't win the championship, so it doesn't matter. No, it matters. They went 73-9. That's an incredible accomplishment. Okay? And we give credit for MVPs, which are voted on at the end of the regular season. They have nothing to do with the playoffs. Theoretically, they have nothing to do with the playoffs. It's still an award that's voted on, so that's kind of a difficult thing to navigate as far as what people are voting on and why they're making the decisions they're making. But, there's just been such a focus on that I think players, you talk about could the players override the teams. I think some of the players are kind of like, well, especially the better, because we're talking about the star players who are going to be judged on what they do in the playoffs. Some of them may just be thinking, well, you know what, if I have a bunch of success in the regular season, no one's going to care. Because if we flame out in the playoffs for whatever reason, it might be completely out of my control, but I'm going to get ripped. It's like, oh, you didn't hit that shot at the end of Game 6 of the first round series against whoever, so you suck, even though you played really well during the regular season and you won the scoring title or you were first team All NBA or something, So
well, and would you rather a guy play 8 to 10 years? Play all the time, play his ass off all the time, maybe have some playoff success, maybe not? Or would you rather have LeBron James for 15 or 20 years where he's really good, but he misses some games he doesn't play in Charlotte in February, on Thursday night. I think it's, and there's two ways to look at it, right? What I said about the TV contracts is true, that they only care about people watching it on TV. Which is sad because if you're going to the game, right, then it's not like it's a different argument. If you're going to the games and it's like, oh man, well, Kawhi's not playing tonight. All right, well, this is the way that, so that's a totally different deal. If you're going to the game and again, you're 8-year-old kid and LeBron's not playing that night, that's a problem because again, you're now creating this whole generation of fans that, well, what the hell do I need to go to the game for? Why do I need to even watch the game? I'll just watch the highlights on YouTube.
Right.
So I don't know. These are big world problems.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's just I do think that like the media is kind of we're the media and the fans, we've gotten sucked into this too. We're doing everybody a disservice by paying so much attention to the postseason and not giving any credit. It's kind of the idea of you got to appreciate the journey, not the destination. And so we've just gotten away from that to the point where now, and I understand it, we like urgency. So sometimes there's games during the NFL season, I'm like, I don't really need to watch this. It's not the playoffs, but we've just decided, well, the playoffs are more important. It's not, we're not just watching a game just to get enjoyment out of it. We're constantly thinking of the next thing, well, you won this game. So how does that affect your playoff seeding? And then what are you going to do in the playoffs? So, which is just kind of an aspect of, we got a 24-hour news cycle and our attention spans are just nothing anymore. So, that's kind of where we're at. But I'm kind of pushing back on that. Like I'm not going to, and I've said this before, I'm not going to totally crush somebody for not playing well in the playoffs, depending on it's the context of the situation. And I'll still give people credit for the regular season. I mean, we're Dolphins fans. Dan Marino didn't, he won some playoff games, but a lot of his success was the regular season. So, you know.
Yeah, I think it definitely is something the NBA is going to have to constantly be looking at and evaluating to figure out what the best way to handle their situation is. So moving on, I mean, I just had a couple of quick things, but the other big thing I wanted to talk about was so Bryce Young finally got measured at the combine.
Yeah.
He is 5'10", 204 pounds, which, the fact that he got over 200 is impressive. It makes me feel like I kind of feel like he probably put on some weight.
You think?
To make
wait. Are you saying that people get all juiced? Not juiced, I shouldn't say that. Are you saying that people get all amped up for the combine and they prepare for it for a few weeks to get bigger and faster? Really? No, I didn't think people would do that.
Yeah, I think that, I don't think that Bryce Young is going to be playing at 204. I don't think that's what his playing weight is going to be. But regardless, and one thing that's been bothering me that, this is a phrase I want to get out of our vernacular, and when we talk about sports, especially football, is resetting the quarterback clock. Okay? Well, if the Bears trade Justin Fields and draft Bryce Young, they reset the quarterback clock. People, resetting the quarterback clock makes no difference if your quarterback sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
at all. Play.
Right, or he's injured and can't play. You're going to get fired anyway. So I know that they think they're buying themselves all this time. And by the way, Americans don't realize this. Our sports, we are much more lenient about coaches and general managers than they are over in European soccer or in other leagues throughout the world. We are way more lenient than all of them are. If you're halfway through the season and you're not winning in European soccer, you're done. You get fired. There's no, and by the way, this is a perfect example. People are mad. Liverpool played Manchester United today and kicked their ass. They beat them 7-0. But people are mad at the Liverpool owners. Somebody flew a plane saying basically they want the ownership group out. Okay? When Manchester United tried to join the Super League, the fans were outside the stadium rioting that they were so pissed off. So, this idea that we'll reset the runway at the NFL stands for not for long. You don't have forever. So
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say I feel like the Europeans are oh, you Americans think that you guys riot and you get upset about sports, you get upset about other stuff. Oh, really? We had 2 world wars on this content. We know how to what are you talking about? Yeah. We've been through some shit over here. You guys have no idea.
Well, yeah, we really don't. Meanwhile, the Dolphins general manager gets to keep his job, which, good Lord, don't get me started on that nonsense. But anyway, so yeah, I don't think, again, pick the right players. Let's stop worrying about, we got to reset the quarterback clock. If we do that, we start over. Oh, yeah, we'll really, listen, if you really think Bryce Young is better than Justin Fields, go for it. Take everything into account, and you want to trade your 6'3", 230-pound quarterback for a quarterback that's 5'10", and, barely 200 pounds, be my guest. It's just not what I would do, and I would not risk my job on somebody that small.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the whole small quarterback thing. Amin El-Hassan was on Levitar, and he's like, well, how does the guy play? I think that matters more than how tall he is. It's like, no, come on. Okay. If you're an NFL GM and you're just going, well, let's just look at how the guy, it's like, there's a whole variety of things that you have to look at. Okay. And I'm not saying that just because a quarterback is big, is 6'4", 220, he's going to be good. I don't know. But I'm just saying, if you go back and look, the quarterbacks who are smaller typically don't play very well. They don't last very long. Russell Wilson, yeah, but Russell Wilson can really, really run around, and he had a really nice situation that he was drafted into. He was bad last year. We'll see if he's better this year. And then you got Drew Brees, who, he was good in San Diego. It took him a little bit to kind of come around to that, and then they moved him to New Orleans, and he got the perfect quarterback coach combo for him, and he was able to kind of get it done. But he still had problems like seeing over the line because he was only 6 feet tall, And even Tua, who is, what is Tua, 6 foot, or is he? Yeah, he's like 6 foot.
Like,
okay. And even he's admitted he has trouble like seeing where he's going to throw the ball sometimes because he's shorter. Okay, and also you have to factor in the injury concerns because even bigger guys get injured. Justin Fields has had injury problems in the NFL. Ben Roethlisberger got injured. Cam Newton got injured. Lamar Jackson wasn't getting injured because he was so fast, and then the past couple of years he's gotten injured. So even if you're big, you can get hurt, but the risk goes up exponentially when you're smaller. Okay, so I don't care how well you play if you can't even play because you're injured. Yeah. And also you have to understand where are you getting drafted into? Do you have enough support around you? And that's part of the problem too. If you're going to draft a small guy up high, that means that you weren't very good last year, which means you probably got a lot of holes on your team. So that makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, you're totally right. Look, my philosophy on this is simple. Like, look, listen, I'm not. This is nothing against Bryce Young. Like, I think Bryce Young's talented. I think Bryce Young in the right situation could be really good. I just don't. I'm just not of the mind that I would draft a guy really high, especially in the first round when you're that size. Like, for me, I'm moving you down. Now, if somebody wants to come in late in the first round and draft him, go for it, man. Like, I think that's perfect. And if he goes to the right team, I think it'd be great. And as far as the Bears are concerned, look, your offensive line isn't very good. You don't have a ton of offensive talent. Like, and plus you're playing outdoors in cold weather. Like, there's a lot of reasons why the Bears should probably not. Bryce Young's probably not for them, right? But if Seattle drafted him, completely different story. If somebody trades down out of the top 10 and drafts him, could be.
Maybe that could work. But again, it's a risk. It's a pretty significant risk, given how small he is. But then, I did want to comment on this because Colin Cowherd was saying, well, I could see some different teams drafting Bryce Young. I mean, you can't have chaos at quarterback, and he's talking about, the Colts. Well, I mean, I guess, they had chaos at quarterback, but it's not like that was just some random thing that happened.
They didn't have. That's not true.
Yeah.
They didn't have chaos at quarterback.
You don't give him enough receivers, which he needed. First of all, he needed receivers even in the prime of his career, but he's older now. He especially needs receivers now. Okay, and then you fire the coach in the middle of the year. You hire Jeff Saturday as the interim coach, which made no fucking sense. So, you had some chaos at quarterback, I guess, but it was kind of self-imposed. So it's like, and the other thing is, if you're going to draft Bryce Young, he could get hurt, and then you're going to have to bring somebody else in, and then you still have chaos at quarterback. So that's a completely ridiculous argument.
Yeah, I don't think Bryce Young's not going to come in and settle down your franchise. Like, what do they think this guy is?
Colin wasn't even saying that. He's saying, he's just a temporary thing. You're going to draft a guy that high to play for, 2 years? Are you, no, you can't do that. I can understand the argument for that, but I don't think GMs are thinking that way.
Yeah, I think, when you're drafting a guy fourth, which is where the Colts are slotted to pick right now, you're drafting a guy that high, you expect him to be a starter on your team and a legitimate player going forward. And why would you take a quarterback if you don't believe he can be your quarterback 8-10 years from now?
Yeah, that makes no sense. I mean, it's like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to draft a quarterback next year? I understand that the draft class next year is better for quarterbacks, but you're going to draft a guy that high, and then, I mean, I guess Arizona did that with Josh Rosen, and then they drafted Kyler Murray. But I mean, that's kind of I feel like that's a unique thing. I don't feel like a lot of teams have, I don't feel like a lot of GMs have the.
Well, but no, but that's
that.
But let's go back though. Their intention in drafting Josh Rosen was not to go, all right, well, we'll take a quarterback next year.
Right.
That wasn't their intention. That's the situation they ended up in.
Right.
Right? Once you're in that situation, oh, well then, yeah, sure. I applaud them for pivoting. But that was not. They didn't draft Josh Rosen with the intention of like they drafted him because they thought he would be, the starter for years to come. And I'm not against taking shots. But I just think I'm not taking a chance. The fourth pick in the draft, I want the safest guy I can get. Well, I want a guy that I know can play.
Well, the other problem is this speaks to quarterbacks are being overdrafted, and it's been happening for a while now. It's just that because you need a quarterback so badly, they're reaching on guys, or they're just drafting a guy. It's like, he's like a second round guy. He's not a first round guy, but you're so concerned about quarterback and you're so concerned someone else is going to get him that you end up overdrafting for him. And then you kind of put yourself in a bind where you have a quarterback who you end up having to possibly pay a lot more money to than he's worth. So that's another problem too, because a lot of these guys are just, Anthony Richardson, you want to talk about a project. Good Lord, he's barely played. Same thing with Trey Lance. And you're going to draft him? He's probably going to get drafted really high in the first round because he's going to go to the combine and he looks fucking amazing, in shorts, just chucking the ball around and running around. But it's like, how do you know how good that guy's been? Which is good for him, but come on. Yeah,
I think he broke the record for the broad jump or the something. He's a freak show. But yeah, no, it is. Listen, teams look at quarterbacks differently. It's a different deal. What concerns me more about quarterbacks, though, is when they hang on to them when they should move on, like the Miami Dolphins. So they're interviewing. They interviewed Chris. Well, first I saw the interview with Mike McDaniel. He's talking on Pro Football Talk, talking to Mike Florio and Chris Sims, and he was basically gave this complete nonsense, minute and a half answer about how they're going to look at all the scenarios and, they want him to be the quarterback and, we're going to evaluate everything involved and all this stuff, which basically means nothing. And then they're talking to Chris Greer about it. And Chris Greer basically says, yeah, Tua's had some health issues and, but we believe that he's, going to be our guy going forward. And it's just I heard that. I just shook my head. I went, saying Tua has some health issues. That's kind of like saying, Donald Trump likes to, blab his mouth out, likes to say a bunch of nonsense. He likes to talk. He gets a little ahead of himself. It's just like, are you kidding me? He has some health issues.
Before he got drafted, people were like, can he still play? He had a career-threatening hip injury.
Tone deaf.
Okay.
Listen.
So that's what's kind of people are so focused on the concussion thing, as they should be, because it was a scary year for him in terms of concussions. But let's not forget all the other health issues he's had throughout his career. And by the championship, and he's gone to the NFL, he's won games. I got to give him credit. And there's been some games where he's played pretty well. But look at the issues Tua has had. So I just, and as far as, what the Dolphins are doing, we'll see when free agency opens. I still feel like Tua's going to be the starter week 1 next year. And I feel like I'm not saying they should, but I think they probably are going to sign the team, take up the team option for the 5th year. So year for him, because if you're going to give him the 5th year option, then after this year, I feel like you have to sign him to an extension after the 5th year. So we'll see, but I think they're walking carefully on that because it happened. But did they sign the franchise thing? Or is it still? It's still up. Okay. Well, for instance, if he becomes available, okay. I could see you going and getting him. I think maybe Mike McDaniel could kind of figure out an offense that would work with him. If your circumstances really change, then maybe like they did when Deshaun Watson became available. So, but beyond that, I think he's going to be the starter, and then we'll see.
I don't think so yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other problem with that is, as opposed to a trade, so if you were to trade for somebody, you could, could you keep? I guess you couldn't really keep that under wraps. I was going to say that, but like with the free agents, like with Derek Carr, like
I think that if there were, I think there were like a better option.
So you're going to find out about that, and then if he decides to, and he can decide to go wherever the hell he wants.
Listen,
so if he decides to go somewhere else, then it's like,
trying to get Derek Carr, but
that looks really bad.
Again, that's a difficult thing because he's going to.
And then if you were to try to trade for somebody and you don't get him, which happened with Deshaun Watson, that looks bad too. So it's kind of a delicate thing where it's like if you're really going to go after one of those things, you got to go after it, and I guess you got to get it because otherwise it can be kind of uncomfortable there. Well, right. Sure, yeah. Somewhat of a make or break year, but unfortunately, I feel like what may happen is, maybe he throws more touchdown passes.
Well, but I mean, it's been uncomfortable the whole time. I mean, they were trying to replace him, a couple of years ago. But we'll see. I'm interested to see if Chris Greer is going to keep up this same aggressive attitude he's had for the last 18 months. We'll see if,
once they do that, I'm saying
that's going to continue or not. I don't buy any of this nonsense that they just are totally committed to, and that's the end of it. They basically what I think is they've committed to that they don't know.
Yeah, because when free agency starts and then they got the draft,
but they're not sure about it.
If they can get the offensive line, because the offensive line got better, just they had some injuries, whatever. If the offensive line can get really sorted out and they can run the ball really well, I could see a scenario with them winning like 10 games. Even with Tua as their quarterback, because he can. There's some things he can do well, and you can win games with him. And and then it becomes a point where, well, if we bring in somebody else, then it's almost like we're starting over. So
yeah, I mean, we're not going to know until May 1st when they decide about the 5th-year option. Like until that happens, like all this stuff none of this stuff really matters, because once they've committed to the 5th-year option, then he's probably going to be the quarterback for the next 2 seasons. There's probably not much. Yeah. Yeah, beyond the health issues.
And it's a quarterback-friendly offense. Like you could, yeah. And also, I'm chucking the ball down the field, and then they get a touchdown out of it, which Tua can't do.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't really expect him to. I mean, that is, you look, offensively, I mean, when you got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, I mean, like, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty awesome. Same thing with Dallas. Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, no. Listen, I think the best thing for the Dolphins to do is we were talking about this the other day. Is I think Carson Wentz is a free agent. I think they should get him to be the backup quarterback. I think he's the
Golden State. Like, I'm not really going to change.
Yeah,
my
I'd rather take
the
younger guy who's not.
Clay Thompson's playing better.
Joe. I mean, listen, I do not want Joe Flacco as my backup quarterback. We just went through what we went through with Bridgewater.
They figured it all out. No, they have not.
Yeah, no, they should get. If Carson Wentz doesn't get a starting job, and I don't think he's going to, he would be the best backup available. And I think they should make an investment in a backup quarterback.
And then we'll see.
It's not like they're just going to
blow through everybody in the West.
If
they do, it's going to be like
6
or 7 game series probably.
If he's your backup quarterback and he only has to play 4 or 5 games,
they could be behind in a series. They were behind. I think when this run for them started. There are worse
guys you can.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, it's just I need to see more. And it's you can't just go, oh, we've been bad defensively all year, and just we'll just flip it on. No, that's not how this works. I mean, that's why they made the trade for Gary Payton Jr., because they realized this is a problem and what we have now is not enough.
Yeah.
So
anything
we'll
else? I know we both watched some of the basketball today. Phoenix was able to beat Dallas. Looks like Kevin Durant's not having any problems.
Yeah. And plus, when you have Aiton there, I mean, he's great at rolling to the rim and stuff. So that adds another element to it. Um, and they've implemented that pitch clock. And I'm kind of, I mean, I haven't seen a game yet, but I'm amazed at how everyone's talking about it. Everybody thinks it's awesome. Okay, everyone who's talking about it, they're like, "Oh my god, the game just moves. Like the game is it's going." And it's kind of like, is this kind of a again? We'll see how it goes in the regular season, but it's like, is this kind of a game changer in terms of because yeah, I can't. I mean, I haven't really been into baseball in like over 10 years because I'm just like I can't sit through these games. I mean, the last kind of interesting. It's like Rob Manfred, dude, you may have really like to excuse the pun, you may have really hit a home run with this rule change. you know, Although I did see something else on, I think it was on YouTube or something. So they banned the infield shift. Well, now teams are doing an outfield shift. So one of the fielders or one of the outfielders will come over if that becomes a thing. But it is kind of interesting. And then I watched. I think I sent this to you. I saw some clip. Someone they juxtaposed a baseball spring training
I
game.
no.
Like
Listen, I agree with you on Golden State, but I think we got to sit and wait. Let's see where they are in April. Let's see how this goes the next
in the spring training game and the time it took them to throw one pitch. Now, in the game from last year, they had a run.
I think we'll kind of reassess.
It was just kind of funny.
I think that the Warriors have been bad on defense most of the season is a problem, and they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do about that. And I think this is going to be really difficult. Like you watched Phoenix today, like I'm not sure how they're going to guard Phoenix. I mean, that
kids
is
playing high school baseball.
The Suns are
because
with those two guys scoring. That is
literally they throw a
be a
pitch
tough
and then whatever happens. The catcher throws the ball back to the pitcher, and then literally it's like 3 seconds later the pitcher's winding up and throwing.
And I'm going to continue to wave my pom poms for the Denver Nuggets.
Something weird's happened.
I think they're being undervalued. I think people are acting like the bubble doesn't exist and pretending that Denver's never done anything in the playoffs.
I guess we're going to maybe go to a spring
I'm baffled
game
by
this
it.
weekend, so we'll see how it is.
I don't understand it. So
this is
I think the West is going to be really fascinating.
Way too long.
Also, I watched Milwaukee against the Sixers Saturday night, and looked like Milwaukee was going to close it out, and Philly came back and beat them. I really like Milwaukee's team. I like all the guys that they have. Chris Middleton's not back to himself yet. He's not playing starters minutes yet, so he's still got to get kind of worked into it. James Harden showed up in that game, so that gave Philadelphia a chance to pull that out.
No, that was it.
But yeah, we're kind of, you can tell teams are kind of, they care more about these games now, and they're putting forth. Some of them are starting to look like playoff games. So we're gonna get a really interesting sample here down the stretch. Right. Yeah, you can see. Right. Yeah, I hope this works out. I hope this gets games over quicker. Tim Kirkjian was talking about a game that was 12-7, so 19 runs scored in the game, and they got it done in under 3 hours. So I think that's really impressive. And baseball's the one sport where the commercials are literally built into it. You have breaks between innings to put the commercials in. So it's literally like the sport that's built for TV, and yet the games take forever. So. But looking forward to it. Next weekend we'll be on talk some more. Whatever stories are popping up around the sports world. And yep. Anything else before we go? All right, folks. Everybody have a lovely evening, and we'll see everybody next week.